Hello again, welcome back inside the Tier 4 studio in Morgantown, West Virginia. And for the Charleston Daily Mail, I am still Mike Casazza. Today is Tuesday, April 16th, 2013, and our video blog today is brought to you by Renovators, WV.com. For all your indoor and outdoor home improvement projects and ideas, check them out online, Renovators, WV.com. Practice number 13 in the books. By the time you watch this, that means 2 more to go before we wrap things up, and that'll be concluded with the spring game, the Gold Blue game, at 2 p.m. Saturday at Mountaineer Field. Not quite certain yet if that will be televised or not. Prior to yesterday, that did not look like it was going to happen, but with State Attorney General Patrick Morrisey revealing his findings in the case for West Virginia's Tier 3 rights, he encouraged West Virginia to reopen the bidding process. West Virginia has complied, and what that does, it removes a communication blockade that had stood between West Virginia and West Virginia media that was keeping the two sides from talking to one another and possibly negotiating a contract to televise the game for a 3rd straight year. West Virginia media had done it the past 2 years, was interested in doing it again this year, but that thing had been tied up for a couple of weeks now, actually a couple of months now, and they hadn't been able to talk. So who knows what will happen in really a compact period of time right now. I'm told that it's not impossible. They can make it happen. Basically that it's not rocket science. It's not as complicated as maybe you or I think. But it could happen. It might not happen. Who knows? Stay tuned on that one. What I can tell you for certain, though, is for the first time in a long time this weekend, I will dust off hardcover copies of Waiting for the Fall and sign them and sell them. The Fishbowl, the one in Suncrest, not the old one down on Richwood Avenue, but the one in Suncrest, invited me to come to a book signing Friday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And I can tell you that through some contentious negotiations, we came to an agreement where a book will get you a fishbowl. Books are $20, and the fishbowl is free. Now, I know it's going to be odd timing for you because the book may be a little bit dated, and we're past all the holidays. Even Easter, you might say, well, let me tell you something. This was not going to fit in your Easter basket anyways. It is actually a perfect gift for Cinco de Mayo. What better way to say Buena Suerte and Vente y Trece than with a signed hardcover edition of Waiting for the Fall. So in review, 4 to 6 p.m. Friday at the Suncrest Fishbowl, you buy one of these. You also get one of these. We'll have a good time. We'll talk some spring football. And again, I will break off a portion of my proceeds to remember the Miners. What do we see in practice today? This will shock and stun you, but not a whole lot outside of special teams. I still find this to be interesting because people want to make a big deal out of the special teams coach, and obviously special teams was not very good last year. Effort will be no fault of their own this year. They put a lot of time and presumably a lot of energy into this, and this was no different today. We saw a lot more focus put on kickoff returns, and kind of the same characters back there returning kicks as before. You had Vernon Davis and Jordan Thompson and Wendell Smallwood and Broderick Jenkins and Avery Williams. Did not have Dustin Garrison. That's a bit of a change. He'd been doing it earlier. He told me on the side once that it really wasn't his favorite thing to do. He kind of liked punt returns, and he's been back there doing that in some drills we saw. But just those other fellas I just mentioned, they seem to be pretty good at it. Vernon Davis especially, and really no wonder he opened eyes that he could be a possibility at receiver, because Dana Holgerson's right. He's pretty quick when he gets going forward, and that's a skill that isn't really useful at cornerback unless you're intercepting passes. But at receiver, you're going to have the ball in your hands a whole lot more. And even if he isn't a receiver on kickoff returns, he has an ability to get outside and run past some people. Interesting to me also, too, was the way they've aligned some things now with the up man right in front of the kickoff return guy. Something really unusual, but it's who it is. And you have the 2 guys returning, and in front of them, fell on the 20-yard line. That would be Garrett Hope, a linebacker, and then 2 in front of him on the right you had Cody Clay, and on the left you had KJ Myers. So from left to right, that's a receiver, a linebacker, and a tight end fullback type. The linebacker and the tight end, those are big bodies, as you can understand, and Garrett Hope's a big guy who kind of runs around and crashes into people on special teams when he's covering kicks. It seems to have that ability at linebacker. Cody Clay, we know what he can do too, a slot receiver, but mostly a blocker, either at the line of scrimmage in the slot or in the fullback spot. KJ Myers is a receiver who, yeah, he got in the field last year blocking on the outside, but that's a skill position and more of a glory position than those other 2 are in this offense. But they like him enough, not only at receiver, but in some special team spots to put him in a high responsibility spot, because they're doing a lot of their returns where he runs to the other side of the return or he's lead blocking on the left side of the return. That's kind of interesting to me that a receiver will be back there in that other company. Something else they worked on too, and the first time we saw it, likely just to get it on tape because maybe they'll work on it in the game, or maybe they don't have it on tape yet and they want to take a look at it and use it for some teaching points in the future. They worked on sky kicks and some squib kicks, and KJ was again fielding those. Good hands, kind of picked some tricky hops off the turf, caught a sky kick in the air, and what was most interesting about that was the kicks coming from the other side of the field, and Josh Lambert kicked it right to KJ Myers. KJ did not have to move at all. Now, he moved a little bit, probably just for comfort, but his feet ended up in essentially the same spot as where he started, which means that from a distance, Josh Lambert was able to kick that thing, sky it, and have it go right where he wanted to do. Pretty impressive. Snapping and holding and kicking, really no adventures again. That hasn't been a problem that we saw, except that one first practice back after spring break. Remember, they were gone for 2 weeks, and they kind of wobbled a few that day, but nothing wrong with that. What I thought was really interesting about the special teams work here, as I drone on about this, but we hear complaints all the time about how the field isn't big enough to do a proper practice, and the special teams guys, they had to leave usually and go up to the practice field outside of the indoor facility and work on their own up there. And that's when they do some drills where Joe DeForest will get down and he'll put the football down in front of the snapper, 10 of them in a short period of time. The snapper has to snap it back, and then the long snapper tries to hit the support on the goalpost, and just things like that they can do up on the practice field they can't do on the turf at Mountaineer Field because they don't have the space. Well, because they scrimmaged later in the day, they didn't want the specialist spending time, wasting time effectively, but going up to the field and then coming back. So they kept them on the field, and while the defense was down here doing some blocking and some tackling and some getting off block drills, and the quarterbacks and receivers and the running backs working on handoffs and receptions on the right side of the field, you had John DePalma snapping to Michael Molinari and Josh Lambert kicking from left to right in the middle of the field. Now, you know how wide a football field is, and Josh Lambert was kicking from the yard marker on the 50-yard line, from the numbers, I should say, and he was booming it to the other side of the field and banging it off that ugly gray wall on the other side. That's quite a kick. So not the best situation for them, but they made something of it. Constructive time, and they went into a scrimmage later where obviously we didn't see a whole lot of it, any of it actually. We'll hear a little bit about it later when we talk to players, but this is how they are wrapping up toward their conclusion here, and really haven't changed very much. This is essentially a Dana Holgorsen rhythm here. He goes day 1, day 2, day 3, and then goes back day 1, day 2, day 3. So this is the final 3-day period, and day 1 of this 3-day period was really no different than day 1 of the other 3-day periods we saw before. The game will look a little bit different, whether you have to read about it in the paper or you can watch it on television. We'll find out, sure. Maybe that's something we can talk about Friday at the Fishbowl in Suncrest.